The bathroom tiles were cold. Zara sat on the floor, her back pressed against the wall, knees folded to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around them. Her fingers were trembling. The pain on her body moved ruthlessly like waves. It had started with a lower back that morning, a very dull ache. She had tried to ignore it. But when Mama had asked her to scrub the staircase, every step from top to bottom, Zara had hesitated, just for a second. The older woman's voice had come sharp and quick. "Why are you standing like that? Have you never cleaned staves before in your father's house?" Zara had smiled weakly. "No, ma, I'm just looking for the mop." She had scrubbed every step with her bare hands and a small brush because the mop had suddenly disappeared. And now her body was punishing her for pretending to be strong. The pain had climbed slowly from her waist to her chest. Her bones felt too tight for her skin. Her shoulders pulsed with heat. Her thighs screamed with cramps. She didn't need a doctor to tell her what was happening. It was a crisis. One of the very bad ones. She leaned her back against the wall and shut her eyes just for a moment. The world around her spun quietly. She could hear the distant clatter of plates in the kitchen, the television in the living room, someone's footstep in the corridor. No one noticed she was missing. They rarely did. Her fingers dug into her clothes, gripping the cloth like it could save her, but it couldn't. Nothing could. Not even her husband. Dozie wasn't home. He was never home long enough to see the cracks forming beneath her smile. Tears gathered at the corner of her eyes. She wasn't sure if it was from the pain or the shame or both. Then slowly her mind drifted back to the beginning, back to the days when her name tasted like hope. She had met Dozie during NYSC camp in Kwara State. The sun had been merciless and the drills was endless. She remembers standing under the open sky, sweating through her white shirt. Her heart was pounding in her chest from the morning parade. She hadn't eaten much. Her crisis had been threatening for days, and that morning it had finally arrived. She remembered the moment it hit, the sharp dragging pain along her spine, the way her knees gave out beneath her, the ground rushing up to meet her face. Everything had gone hazy. But one voice had broken through. Hey, are you okay? Somebody help, please. Don't move her like that. Wait." She remembered opening her eyes and seeing a face she would never forget. Sharp cheekbones, sweat running down his forehead, eyes full of panic and care. Dozie. He had carried her to the clinic, argued with the nurses where they delayed, sat beside her for hours, even bought her Lucozade and held her hand. And after that day, he never stopped caring. He took her phone number and would always message her every morning and evening, asking her, "How are you? Hope you're fine. Have you eaten?" And each time they had drills, he would always inform the medical personnel to exempt her. Zara was a little too introverted for that, but Dozie, always supportive, told her, "You don't need to be shy about these things. It's your life. Nothing is more important." They grew even closer every passing day. She tried to push him away at first. "You don't know what you're getting into," she had said once. "I have sickle cell, oh. It's not an easy life." But Dozie only smiled. Then, "I won't do it alone. That's what it means now. We'll face it together." Dozie loved her loudly. He would introduce her to his friends, walk proudly beside her, made her feel like she mattered a lot. She had never known love like that. Not after her parents died. Not after she was passed from one relative to another. Not after her life became a series of silent rooms and whispered pity and she was told never to mention her family name again. Dozie made her feel alive. Wanted. Seen. A loud bang outside the bathroom snapped her back. Zara opened her eyes. She was still sitting on the cold tiles. The pain was still there, worse now. Her arms had gone numb. Her lips were dry. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. It was Adora's voice, Dozie's sister. It was sharp and irritated. "Zara, what are you doing there? Are you sleeping in there?" Zara swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "No, I'm coming." She pulled herself up slowly, using the sink for balance. Her legs wobbled beneath her. Her body screamed, but she reached for the door anyway, because in this house, pain was no excuse, and she had learned that even love was not enough to protect her from people who had never wanted her to begin with. The phone rang twice before Dozie picked it up. "Z baby," he said, his voice soft, full of warmth as usual. "I was just about to call you." Zara sat on the edge of the bed, one hand pressed gently to her chest, the other holding the phone to her ear. She had barely slept that night. Her body was so sore from the market run. Her right palm was swollen slightly from where she had scraped it against the wall earlier. But it wasn't just her body that was tired. Her heart was cracking. "Dozie," she said, her voice trembling, "I don't think I can do this anymore." He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What happened?" She didn't know where to start. The list was endless. The continuous errands, the eyes that continued watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake, the insults, both subtle and loud, the way his mother always spoke as if Zara had failed even before she even tried to do anything. Or was it his sisters that acted like sickness was her personality? But she chose her words carefully. "Dozie, I'm trying, I swear, I'm trying, but I'm always exhausted. They make me do everything in spite of how I feel. I go to shopping, I do the cleaning, the cooking, even when they see that I'm obviously not feeling well. Your mom will give instructions to me like I'm a housemaid. Your sisters don't speak to me unless they are giving me orders or they're trying to insult me." Dozie sighed. "Zara, I've been trying to hold on," she whispered. "But every day feels harder than the last one." He didn't speak up again for a few seconds. Then finally he said, "Baby, please, just manage for a few more days. I'll try and come back next week. Things are a bit tight for me on the platform, but I'm already speaking with my supervisor. Once I get approved, I will come back, okay?" Zara's heart sank. That wasn't what she needed to hear. She needed him to be angry, defend her, and tell her that this is not how a wife should be treated. She needed him to call his mother, his sisters, to demand that they treat her with kindness, to remind them that she was his wife and not a stranger or a housemaid. But all he said was, "Manage." "I just don't want to look like the wife that causes trouble," she said softly. "But sometimes I wonder if your family even sees me as a human being." "They will," he promised. "Just give them time and hold on for me, okay? I'll come back next week. I promise." She nodded slowly, her eyes stinging with fresh tears. "Okay, oh. I love you. I love you too." And the line went dead. She sat there for a long time staring at the floor. The next day came like the others, full of instructions, criticism. Adora called her into the kitchen mid-morning. "Mommy said you should prepare egusi soup and jollof rice for her this night. They're expecting guests." Zara blinked. "2 meals?" "Yes," Adora said, folding her arms. "Unless you are too weak and sick again. In that case, we can order food or tell the housemaids to cook it. And explain to the guests that our wife that we married is too fragile to lift a spoon." Zara turned away and said nothing. She made the food, stood on her aching legs for hours, pounding and stirring, boiling and frying. Her wrapper was soaked with sweat by noon. Her chest tightened again. The warning signs were there, but no one cared to see them. By evening, she served the meals. At the end, no one even said thank you. As the guests arrived, laughter floated down the corridor. Zara, already changed into a plain gown, stayed quietly in the background. She wasn't introduced, she wasn't included, she was invisible. That night, Dozie didn't call and he didn't return the next week. The platform had extended his shift yet again. He sent a short message instead. "I'm still stuck here. I'm sorry. Hang in there. I miss you so much." Zara read it 3 times, then placed the phone down on the bedside table and turned to the wall. The ache in her bones was spreading again, but worse than the pain was the silence. The next day, it rained. Zara was in the laundry room when the roof began to thrum. The soft, steady sound of water against zinc. She liked that sound. It reminded her of home, real home, before everything broke, before her father died, before she had to start over with relatives who saw her as a responsibility, before pain became her roommate. She remembered a night, maybe she was 9, when the rain had come like this. Her father had picked her up and carried her outside, barefoot, both of them, soaked and laughing. Rain is not your enemy, he said, spinning her around. It's proof that something is growing beneath the ground. Zara smiled faintly. Even now, she wanted to believe him. That afternoon, Mama sent for her. Zara walked into the sitting room slowly, her back still sore. The woman was seated in her usual spot, regal as ever sharp behind her gold-rimmed glasses. "I've spoken with Dozier," she said without looking up. "He said he'll be all sure for another week." Zara nodded. "Yes, ma." The older woman sipped her tea, then placed the cup down gently, which means we'll be managing things here without him again, at least for now. "I hope that won't be a problem." "No, ma," she answered. "Good." She looked up then, her gaze cool. "You should learn how to keep this house in order. Your background might not have prepared you, but marriage is not for weak people, sickness or not." Zara said nothing. The silence stretched. Then Mama stood. "There's a family dinner on Friday. You help with the cooking and make sure you don't embarrass us." She walked past Zara without waiting for a response. Zara stood in the empty room, her chest tight. Marriage is not for weak people. She has heard those words on repeat almost all day, like a bell in her head. By Thursday, the pain had faded. Not completely though, but enough for her to move freely again. She went to the market, bought everything Mama listed. Meat, vegetables, spices, fresh fruits. She got back sweating, feet aching, hands red from nylon straps. Nobody helped her carry anything inside. She cooked all afternoon, cut, stirred, measured, burned her hand slightly. The housekeepers passed by and paused at the door. "Madam Zara, are you okay?" Zara turned, smiling faintly. "Yes, thank you." The girl hesitated, then added quietly, "The soup smells nice." It was a small sentence, but it felt like rain on dry ground. That night, as she lay in bed, she whispered to the darkness, "I'm trying, Papa." And somewhere deep inside her, something whispered back. As the days passed, the maltreatment grew even worse. And at a point, Zara realized it was time for her to make a change. She was suffering silently. Her sickness was getting even worse. And yet, no one appreciated her. Instead, they criticized and insulted her every move. "You're a daughter of nobody. A sick daughter of a nobody," they continued. The change didn't happen all at once. It came quietly, like the first breeze before the rain. Zara had woken up before dawn that day, but she didn't rush out of bed like usual. She lay still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan above her. It turned in lazy circles as if it was even tired to keep pretending. She had heard them last night. Those sisters, they were talking, laughing, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. She thinks marriage is akra and bread. I give her 3 more weeks. She's hanging by threads. By the 3rd week, I am sure that girl was leave this place. They didn't know that the thread had already snapped. By afternoon, Mama walked into the kitchen while Zara was peeling yams. Zara, you will fry plantain after this yam and clean the guest room. That one that is upstairs." Zara turned slowly. Her hand didn't stop moving, but her voice did something it had not done since she was married into the house. It answered clearly. "Mama, no." There was no anger in her tone, no edge, just a simple, steady word. Mama blinked, surprised. "Excuse me?" Zara wiped her hands on her clothes, looked at her calmly in the eye. "Mama, I said no. I won't be cleaning anything upstairs today." The silence that followed was long and sharp. Mama stared at her like she was staring at a stranger, then turned and walked out of the kitchen. That evening, she didn't come down for dinner, and when Adora called her name, Zara didn't answer. The next morning, the tension was thick. Nobody called out to her, nobody spoke to her or even greeted her. By afternoon, one of the housekeepers knocked on her door and delivered the message. Mama says you should move your things to the boys' quarters until your husband comes back. She says that you need time to reflect. Zara folded her clothes quietly, packed her few belongings, carried her Bible, her phone, and nothing else. She walked through the back door across the compound and into the small, windowless room where the gardener used to sleep. It smelled of old soap and dust. The mattress was thin, the fan barely worked. She sat on the bed and folded her hands in her lap. That night, she called Dozier. He answered. "Z, baby," as usual. She didn't speak immediately. She waited. Then she said, "Dozier, they've moved me to the boys' quarters." He was silent. "They said I need space to reflect, that I've become rude because I said no to their endless errands." Dozier kept quiet, then spoke. "Zara, please, can you just manage it for now? I'll be home very soon." That was when she felt it. The final crack. Not from his words, but from the softness in them. That softness that should have protected her, but he said smooth over her pain like it didn't matter. "I'm tired, Dozier," she said quietly. "I know," he replied, "but just endure a little longer." She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. And when the call ended, she didn't cry. She just lay on the small bed, eyes open, listening to the generator hum in the distance. The next morning, she rose up very early, packed up her bags, wrote a note with her last strength. "This is not the home I thought I would be in. I'm no longer the version of myself that I want to be. Tell Dozier that I tried. I really did." She placed it gently on the stool, opened the door and walked out. She didn't look back. Inside the main house, the laughter started as soon they saw her carrying her box out of the house. "I thought you would never leave. See you now. I told you that you were not welcome in this place, but you insisted you would marry my brother. See now, you didn't even last for 3 months." They all laughed. But somewhere in the quiet part of the day, when the kitchen was empty and the chairs were still, there was an absence that filled the air like perfume. Because she hadn't shouted, she hadn't broken plates, she hadn't packed boxes in anger. She just walked out, and something about that silence echoed louder than any voice ever could. The small guest room was quiet. Zara sat on the edge of the mattress, her arms folded around her knees, staring at nothing. Her friend Amarachi had given her the room without question, just open arms, a soft blanket, and a promise. "You can stay here as long as you need." Zara had nodded. She couldn't speak. She had walked away from everything, Dozier, the mansion, the silence that tried to drown her, and now, in this tiny space that smelled of powder and peace, the memories began to return. She had tried to forget it in years. She hadn't remembered it. She hadn't allowed herself to, but tonight, she did. She was 6 when it happened. Her father was Justice Obiora Wadinobi, a man whose name even politicians sit up straight. He wore silence like a robe, spoke with precision, and stood on truth like it was land that couldn't shift. She used to fall asleep listening to the sound of his voice reading legal papers at night. That night was different. She remembered the way the air felt, heavy, tense. She had been sleeping between her parents when the door burst open. Gunshots. Her mother screamed. Her father shouted something loud and commanding like a man who still believed justice could stop bullets. Then arms, her mother's arms, scooped her up and ran through the hallway behind the bookshelf into the secret room. "Stay here," her mother had whispered. "Don't make a sound. No matter what you hear, don't open this door." Zara remembered the smell of her mother's perfume, the way her hands shook, the way she shut the panel and left her in darkness. She had pressed her hands against her ears, but she still heard it. The last scream, the last shot. Then there was silence. When she came out, the corridor was dim. The door to the bedroom was open. She stepped in, barefoot, wearing a cotton nightgown with butterflies on it. Her feet left quiet prints on the cold floor. They were lying side by side. Her mother's eyes were open, her father's hands still reaching out as if he had tried to protect her from something he could not hold. Zara didn't cry. She just stood there, frozen, in shock, until the neighbor, Uncle Ekene, came rushing in. His voice broke the spell. He saw her, dropped his phone, scooped her into her arms. Jesus, Jesus, I'm God. No. They rushed her to the village that same night. One of the father's brothers took her in, but things were never the same. They told her to forget everything. The men who did this were sent. You were not supposed to even survive, they said. They changed her name, her school, her story. You are not Chizaram anymore. You are Zara. Forget the rest. Don't ask questions. Just stay quiet. And so, she stayed quiet for years. Even after she grew older, even after the nightmares stopped, she never said the name again. Not even to Dozie. Now, as she sat on the mattress in Amarachi's room, she finally cried. Not for her marriage, but for the 6-year-old girl who had to bury her name for the life that could have been. The house that should have been hers. The mother who never got to grow old. But grief wasn't all she had left. Zara got up the next morning, took a shower and opened her phone. She started applying for jobs. Secretary, assistant, admin support, school receptionist, anything she could find. She went out in the sun, submitted her CV, smiled at strangers and pretended not to limp from fatigue. Each rejection hurt, but none as much as staying in that house that she had. She kept going. One day, weeks later, her phone rang. It was a strange number. She almost didn't pick up, but something in her spirit nudged her. She answered softly, "Hello." The voice on the other end was female, older, formal. "Good afternoon. Am I speaking with Chizaram Wadinobi?" Zara froze. Heart skipped. Once, twice. I'm sorry, who is this? My name is Ifoma. I used to be a senior clerk at the Federal High Court. I've been looking for you. I need to see you. It's important. I'm not. Zara hesitated. I don't use that name anymore. I understand, she said, but I assure you, this is not dangerous. I used to work in the Federal High Court administration. Please, I need to see you. It's very important. It's just for a few minutes. It concerns your father's holdings. I would never call you if it wasn't really necessary. Zara didn't respond. Her hands were shaking. That night, she sat in Amarachi's room, told her everything, and asked her what to do. Amarachi held her hand. You can't keep hiding from your own name, Z. Let her speak, but meet in public, somewhere safe. They picked a quiet cafe in Lekki. The woman was already seated when Zara arrived. Grey scarf, plain dress, a brown envelope in her hand. Zara sat opposite her, unsure if she should stay or run. But the woman gave her a soft smile when she saw her. I watched your father stand up for people nobody else could protect, she said. They tried to erase that, but justice doesn't die easily. She slid the envelope across the table. Your father had shares in these 3 companies. 2 were frozen after his death. 1 has just resurfaced. The government, after verifying some documents, assigned the property to you, and they couldn't return to his estate immediately after the murder. Every document is here, she said, dragging the envelope to her. Zara blinked. I thought all my dad's properties were gone. It's not. And there are people, powerful people, who know that your name has value. Zara's hands trembled as she opened the file. Inside was the beginning of a new life and the future she never thought she would have. Zara stayed at the cafe long after the woman had left. The brown envelope was still on the table in front of her. She didn't open it. Not yet. Her hands were on her lap and her eyes were staring at nothing. For a long time, she just sat there quiet and still. She was thinking about her father, about the sound of his voice, about how he used to carry her on his shoulders and call her my bright light. Now, someone was saying she had left things behind. Companies, houses, things he worked hard for, things that now belonged to her. She felt like crying, but she also felt like smiling. That evening, when Zara got back to Amarachi's house, she didn't say much. She opened the envelope when she was alone. Inside were papers and two photographs of her father. One photo made her stop. It was him standing in front of a gate. He looked happy and proud. She turned it over. At the back, in faded pen, was her name, Chizaram. She held the photo to her chest and closed her eyes. The next few days were quiet. Zara didn't rush to do anything. She didn't tell anyone big story. She didn't shout. She didn't even tell Amarachi too much at first. She just took her time. Each morning, she sat on her bed, reading the papers from the envelope. There were kind of many, looking at the names of places and people who had gifted her dad, people her father once worked with. She remembered him telling her, always listen more than you speak. So she listened to her own heart, to the quiet voice inside her that was slowly getting stronger. One afternoon, she looked up at Amarachi and said, I want to write to that woman again, the one who brought the envelope. Go ahead, Amarachi said gently. I think it's time. And so she did. She sent her a simple message asking to meet again, somewhere peaceful. The woman replied quickly and said she was glad to meet with her. She had more things to explain, things that Zara did not understand. Although Zara felt nervous, she just smiled. That weekend, she wore one of Amarachi's gowns, a soft yellow one that made her skin glow, and tied her hair back neatly. As she waited for the meeting, she whispered to herself, I'm not just Zara. I am Chizaramwa Dinubi, and I still belong to something. When she sat down to talk to the woman again, she listened, and slowly she began to understand. Her father had left her with more than memories. He had left her with a future, a good name, properties, houses, all saved up in her name. And even though people tried to erase her, even though they told her to forget her name and hide, that name was still waiting for her. Not long after, the Wokedis ran into trouble. It started with a letter. A clean white envelope delivered to the gate by a man in a grey shirt. He didn't say much, just asked the security man to give it to Madam Woked. The houseboy placed it on the center table. Mama opened it after lunch. She read it slowly, then again, then another time, before removing her glasses and rubbing her eyes. What is it, Mommy? Joma asked. The mother didn't answer. She just stood up, walked to her room, and locked the door behind her. By evening, she called a family meeting. Those eight sisters sat in the living room, faces tense. Mama stood at the window, her hands folded across her chest. There's a problem, oh, she said. Adora frowned. What kind of problem again, Mama? The company, Hellmark Holdings, one of our oldest partners, they just withdrew interest. Why? Because someone else has stepped forward. There is someone that has claim to our land. We thought that land was under our name. They said that her father had original ownership and now she just resurfaced and she's claiming it. Amaka scoffed. Ha! Who is she? Some hungry woman that wants to just cash out and scam us. Ah, Mama, how can you be scared of that kind of thing? The mother turned sharply. No, Adora, it's not a joke. Oh. This is real. The court confirmed her connection to the land. She now has controlling rights over part of the business. That's what's in the letter. Ah, Ijoma pressed. But Mama, who is she? What's her name? The mother opened the envelope again and read the name slowly, like the letters were foreign. Her name is here. They said it's Chizaramwa Dinubi. The name hung in the air for a moment. None of them reacted. None of them knew the name. No one connected it to the girl they had mocked, pushed, and sent to the boys' quarters. They just repeated the name like it belonged to a ghost. Ha! Where is she from? The lawyer who had been seated quietly in the corner all the while cleared his throat. She's based in Lagos now, but her father was Justice Obiora Wadinobi, late. He was killed years ago. Their mother froze. That name. That was a very popular name before. Very, very familiar. She sat down slowly. Obiora. He was a judge, the lawyer continued. Very highly respected judge. There were rumors about his death. Some say it was a political thing. Andora hissed. So what do we do now? We should just hand over everything to her. The lawyer gave a small laugh. You don't understand though. You people don't have anything to hand over. He's already gone. The legal claim has been approved. They are just being polite by offering to speak with you before making further moves. There was silence in the room. Dozie's mother looked like someone who had been slapped. How can that be? All because of one girl? One name, the lawyer said. He stood and packed his files. I'll be arranging a meeting with her tomorrow. Maybe she will be willing to work with you, but if not, there is very little that we can do about your company. Please, we don't want to beg anybody, Amaka snapped. The lawyer gave a tight smile. If pride paid salaries, una go still dey float oh. And with that, he walked out. Later that night, Rosie called from work. Mommy said, you people had an emergency meeting. What's going on? Adora picked the call. She said some woman had come to collect part of the company. Who? He asked. Her name is something like Chizaram from one late judge's family. There was a short pause on the name. What did you say her name is? Chizaram Wadinobi. Rosie went quiet for a long time. Back in her small room, Zara lit a candle. She wasn't doing it for the light. There was power. She did it because it reminded her of her mother, and she whispered softly like a girl telling a secret to the wind. They don't know yet, Mama, but they will. The workers arrived early the next morning. Mama wore her finest lace, her gold earrings swinging gently as she walked. Adora, Amaka and Ijoma followed behind her in silence, dressed in quiet dignity, but their faces tight with pride and panic. The boardroom was on the 7th floor of a quiet building in Okoyi. There was no banners, no signs, no noise of words screaming from the walls, just polished floors and quiet tension. They were ushered into the meeting room. A long table, clean chairs, and bottles of water. He stood as they walked in but said nothing. He looked tired in the eyes, like a man who had started putting the pieces together. Who is coming? Adora whispered, checking the empty seat at the end of the table. They said she will be here shortly, the secretary replied. Mama adjusted her blouse impatiently. Let her come quickly now and say what she wants to say. We don't have all day. Then the door opened. She stepped in. Soft green gown, her hair pulled back. No makeup, no jewelry, just calm Zara. They stared. Adora blinked, sat back slowly. Amaka's mouth opened, then closed. Ijoma let out a small dry cough. Their mother sat very still. Josie stood up, voice low. Z? Zara didn't look at him. She walked slowly to the head of the table and sat down, not like a guest, like someone who owned there. The lawyer entered right behind her, smiling calmly. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin? Zara opened the file in front of her, pulled out the paper, looked up slowly, meeting every eye around her. One by one. Dozie's mother was the last. Zara's voice was gentle. I'm sure you're wondering how I got here. No one spoke. She placed a photograph on the table. Her father standing in front of Hallmark Holdings, smiling like the future lived in his chest. My name is Chizaram Obianuju-Nwadinobi, daughter of Justice Obiora Nwadinobi, the man whose land and legacy you have built on for years. The room stayed silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner. I was 6 when I saw him die. Zara continued, her voice soft but clear. I was hidden in a secret room where my parents were killed. After that, I was told to bury my name, to stay quiet for my safety. She paused. No one moved, but names, she whispered. They have a way of rising, even when you forget them. They remember you. Mama Oke declared her truth. Zara. Zara looked at her, head tilted slightly. I remember cleaning your stairs with a brush while my back was in pain. I remember you. You called me fragile as if it was a crime. His voice came low and trembling. Z, please don't go there, please. Zara looked at him. You never asked about me. You promised you were going to come back, but you never did. And when I leave, you call me on the phone. The lawyer spoke then. As the rightful heir to Justice Wadinobi's shares and assets, Madam Chizaram has now assumed full control over the lands tied to Hellmark Holdings. Zara stood up slowly. I didn't come here to take revenge or to remember the past things. I came to take what was mine, quietly, legally and fully. She looked at each of them again, this time not with pain but peace. You don't have to like me, but from now on, when you speak of me, put respect beside my name. She walked to the door, paused and added without turning back. Next time you want to call someone a nobody, be sure they don't carry a name that can shake the ground beneath you. And then she left. The silence she left behind was louder than any insult they had ever given. Zara sat by her window, watching the sky turn gold. She had moved into a small house, not too grand, not too hidden, just enough, just hers. A letter from the foundation she started lay on her table. It read, "Thank you for helping girls find their names again." Zara smiled, closed her eyes, and whispered, I didn't just survive, I triumphed. The end. Wow! Thank you so much for watching this story to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Zara's story was never about revenge. It was about becoming whole after being torn, after being silenced, after being insulted and maltreated for what she could not help. Through pain, shame, and rejection, Zara taught us that even when the world tries to tell you you are small, you can choose not to shrink. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't ploy to destroy, she simply remembered who she was, and that changed everything. What are the things you can learn from this story? Well, for me, the moral lessons are that sometimes love without backbone isn't enough. Just imagine how Dozie loved her. Dozie loved her, yes, but his silence in the face of injustice made his love feel so empty. Love must protect. At least he should have shown up more and speak up. But instead, he kept telling her to manage. That's absurd to me. Another lesson I also learned from this story is that where you come from doesn't define you, but it can empower you. Zara buried her name out of here. Yes, it's understandable, but when she embraced her truth, she claims not just her legacy, but her dignity. Imagine she still continues saying that she didn't want to mention her name or tell anybody anything. I don't think she would have been able to inherit the things that she got. Another thing that I enjoyed in this story is that people will laugh at you until they see who you are. They mocked her, mistreated her, threw her into boys' quarters, but she rose and didn't even need to retaliate. Her presence alone was enough. Zara's story is for every woman who has been called a nobody, for every girl who has buried her name to survive, for every person who has stayed quiet just to keep peace, and for every woman suffering from a particular disease. Let this be a reminder. You were never invisible. You were never weak. And one day, you will rise again. Not in noise, but in glory. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think about this story? What are the moral lessons that stand out for you? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so we can bring you more interesting stories like this. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.